Good morning, everybody. This is Kenneth with the Advancing Equity Coalition, again here with Heather, and we're here to give you a quick update about what went down at the Committee of the Whole meeting last night. Definitely a couple of big conversations. So Heather, do you want to, well, first, Heather, how are you doing today? Sorry.
Great today. I got the coffee flowing.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, do you want to give us a quick recap around what went down during the school board meeting last night?
Sure. So last night we heard the results of the Bell Time study and the proposal that the board will be voting on for the next board meeting. We heard a lot more information about what phase 3 is going to look like and when it's going to start and what it's not going to look like and when it's not going to start. We heard from the Department of Health about some of the concerns and considerations that they have about students going back into buildings. We heard the results of the survey regarding distance learning that went out to families. And then we really, at the end, had the votes on 3 different contracts that the board needed to just kind of finalize and make happen. So that was really the bulk of what happened during the meeting last night.
Yeah. So to give you a little bit more detail into the 2 big conversations that took place, which was bell times and distance learning updates. We have our 2 slides of the night from those presentations. So this first slide is talking a lot about, what is the goal of having the bell time study, right? And so they went into talking about why changing the bell times as a part of the comprehensive district design is so important. And as you can see here, one of the reasons is so that we can make sure that more students have opportunities for after school programming. It's been really difficult for schools that especially have late end times and late start times to have access to the after school programming that they need. And it's really been very inequitable. On top of that, right, we see that middle school students aren't equitably having access to athletics because their start times and end times have been so different from high schools. And so part of the bell time work has been to really align some more bell times so that students can have access to after school activities, which the district has said does improve academic outcomes. And parents have said they really look for, obviously for childcare purposes, but also for students to have extra enrichment opportunities. Heather, what else did you hear during the bell time conversation last night?
Well, lots of things about like the why, right? So what we learned was a lot about the why we're talking about this, and then where it gets really confusing is the how we get there. So we'll be talking a little bit more about our feelings about the how in our longer video, but there was a lot to digest in this bell time study.
Yep, for sure. So next, during the distance learning conversation, as many of you have probably heard, Minneapolis Public Schools is considering to move to phase 3 during the second quarter. And so last night they gave us, as Heather mentioned, some things to be thinking about. An epidemiologist from the Minneapolis Department of Health joined the school board meeting to just go through, how are we partnering with the district? What are the things that we're watching for? What are the processes and protocols that we're recommending that the district really go through as y'all consider to move more students into the building? And so we also got an update around what does phase 3 look like. And so there's been a lot of confusion around what phase 3 means and what we're trying to do with this. And so I think it was really important to share this slide and have everyone understand, here's what phase 3 really looks like. I think the 2 most important things that have gotten confused and gotten, I'd probably say has started to misinform people is how much of a requirement it is that both staff and students go back to buildings. And so as you can see here, Minneapolis Public Schools is saying that there is no requirement for staff or students to go back into the building, and really that this is meant to be an opportunity and an option for families who are not getting the services that they need through distance learning and need more in-person services. But for both groups of people, those are voluntary opportunities to provide in-person support and to receive in-person support. What are your thoughts on that, Heather?
Yeah, I really heard them really talking about that, the idea that We are just volunteering. We are just getting ready to talk about starting it on November 9th. I think a lot of people heard November 9th and thought, okay, that's when things are changing again. I need that change. And what I heard last night was November 9th is the very beginning of the thought of the change. So it's much more of a ramp than it is a step.
Right, for sure. And I think, really it might behoove the district to maybe change their language to just talk about it in terms of at some point in Q2, this is a plan that we're hoping to make or a step that we're willing to take. But of course, they're continuing to watch the information and the data come through. If you all don't already know, the district on their website has a dashboard to help make the decisions and help keep people informed around what is the data that they're looking at in order to make this decision around should we be moving more students back into the building. I will say that so that people aren't taken by surprise also, in Q3, starting in February, is when they're going to start thinking about moving more students on a more mandated basis back into buildings. And so just something to keep your eye out on, something to be aware of, that maybe Q3, there might be more of a requirement and more of an opportunity for students to be in buildings and for staff to be in buildings. I do believe that that parents will still have the option to keep their students at home if they want to throughout the year. But, I think that's just a constant conversation that we'll need to continue to monitor. So with all that being said, and to make sure we keep this short, we wanted to get to y'all's favorite part of our videos, our most valuable moment and our do better moment. So Heather, do you want to kick us off with your most valuable moment?
Yeah, so my most valuable moment last night comes from Senior Officer Moore. And one of the board members, I think it was Director Inns, he asked a question about why don't we see better survey results from families of color? And I think that Officer Moore really talks very pointedly about the why. And for me, the naming of that was so valuable. So what he said was, families of color, when they come into our buildings with very specific feedback about situations or concerns that they have, are not met with responsiveness, invited, change. They're not met with welcoming, right? But white families are, he used the word hyper engaged because we reinforce their engagement. And so, because the system responds to the demands and the interests and the concerns of white families consistently, they are trained and they know that their survey results are going to matter. And I really thought that rather than him naming I think a lot of times when we talk about family engagement, we talk about the results, right? So what do we see as the result? But what we don't talk about is that broken, systemic, ongoing impact and the way that we get to those results. And I so appreciated him naming it. If I am not listened to with my most basic concerns about my student at the door of your school, why the heck am I going to fill out your text survey at a Saturday night at 8:00? I already know you're not going to listen to me. And so I thought that, P.S., if we flip that, if I know that you're going to listen to my most basic concerns on a dime, I am absolutely going to fill out that text survey at 8:00 on a Saturday night. And I thought that was the most profound naming of the thing versus naming the symptom.
Yeah, certainly. And sorry about that.
I was here for it.
my phone rang a little bit in the middle of that, but yes, for sure. And I was just thinking about, as you do, you kind of live commented the Facebook or the school board meeting on your Facebook. And I saw a comment in there that said, yeah, for sure. When, Senior Officer Moore said that, because I had a very specific concern last year with my student. And I talked to the assistant principal, the principal, the associate superintendent, the superintendent, several school board members, and nothing changed for my child. So why would I fill out your survey in the middle of the summer? Because I talked to every person in power and nothing changed for my child. And so I thought that was just a very, very emblematic comment to describe what is happening and why we see such low survey results from families of color. I think there are multiple reasons why, but I think that's a really big reason why.
That's
Uh,
right.
I'll say that my most valuable moment wasn't necessarily a specific moment, but I thought, Senior Officer DeVette, the Senior Officer of Operations, did an amazing job really laying out all the information for something that can be really technical and may not be as exciting or sexy as some of the other topics that are discussed, like the bell time study. And also had a significant responsibility to talk about what is going to happen operationally for students going back to school for phase 3 and phase 4. And so I thought Senior Officer DeVette did a great job. She laid out information in a way that, sometimes when we listen to some of these presentations, feels like the district is really trying to sell it. It felt like, Senior Officer DeVette shared it with transparency, shared, here are the challenges that we're having, here are the considerations that we're making, here's what we heard, here's why, here are the problems that it could cause in the future. It just felt really, really strong and really, really informative. And it felt like the district was putting their best foot forward and trying to figure out this really complicated thing like bell time studies, and just in a way that was digestible for me, who, I think about education all the time, but it's not like I'm an expert in some of these topics. And so I thought that she deserved my most valuable moment, and she had a string of them all night long.
Nice.
Yeah. So the most salacious part of our conversation, the do better moment. You wanna kick us off?
So my do better moment is what you typically name as a do better moment. I thought academics did not show up at all last night as part of a conversation about, like, right now we have teachers who are upset about the schedule that they're enduring. We have families that are upset about the amount of hours that their kids are on screen time. What we learned last night was that many of our students are not going back into buildings before even a chance to go back before February. And we know that there are like tensions rising about the schedule. And what I heard last night was a lot of information about health and the way phase 3 will look, but no answer from academics at all about the place that the majority of our students and our teachers are living in with it, which is the tension of this schedule. So my do better moment is like, academics, we need that plan. We don't need the theory, we need the plan.
Yeah. And what I also, as we discussed this before, recording this, what I heard you say, what really resonated with me is we keep hearing about this tension around the safety and health of our students and the academic needs of our students. And we keep hearing presentation after presentation after presentation around, here are the protocols, here's the update on what's going on with the pandemic. And school board members continue to bring up, like, we know that, these are tensions and these are things that we both need to weigh. But again, we just have not heard really strongly from academics, here's what's happening in distance learning, here's why we need to move back to in-person, here's what we're going to do to mitigate some of the things that are happening. It's just been it feels like a real disappointment, and has really put towards my disappointment. You actually put towards my disappointment in a really important and descriptive way. So I appreciate you for that. And I hope that we start to hear, more about what's going on with academics, both in distance learning and, what is going to happen in person to provide like these stronger supports for some of our most vulnerable communities. So,
Yep.
and, not to pile on, but my do better moment is similarly related. Last night, Director Arneson, during the bell time study, talked a little bit around like, what is the importance of some of our bell time changes, and if we need to move around some of our bell times because we're not seeing enough enrollment in some of our after school programming or anything like that, what's going to happen? And I just thought that Senior Officer Fearing just did not really answer the question very well. This is such an important piece of the bell time study and the CDD to ensure that more families get access to after school programming. And it just didn't feel like the decision tree was really made or wasn't even really conceived of yet. If things don't go according to plan, and not to mention, Director Arneson also asked, like, what is the goal? What are we shooting for? How will we know we're on track with after school programming and enrollment? And there was no answer. There was no answer for like, here's a goal for how many students we want to see in after school programming. Like we want to see an increase in 20%, or, you know, we want to be up to 75% of our elementary school students engaging in after school programming. We just didn't hear any of that. And so again, it feels like we're doing this operation thing without having a North Star of what we're trying to accomplish academically for our students, even though we're saying that this operational thing is going to be such a big deal for academic outcomes for especially our most vulnerable students. So that would be my do better moment from last night. I promise you there are others. There are some other frustrating moments that we've generally harped on, but I think those two things really stood out to me. On top of, again, then, you know, I think between the both of us, we've said there just wasn't any conversation really about academics. So
Again.
So
Again. Yep.
If you're interested, you know, check out our longer video. We'll go more in depth into what we are thinking about as the Bell Time study came out, and also as we make transitions into phase 3 and phase 4 for distance learning. But thank y'all for listening.